Welcome to the Big Blue Motorbike Dogs Kawasaki W800 channel. If you're returning, welcome back. Today I'd like to talk about falling in love with motorcycling again and certain motorcycles that do that for us. This is particularly for people who have been riding for a while, but maybe a lot of this will ring true for people who are falling in love with motorcycling or have recently fallen in love with motorcycling. The things that I remember when I first fell in love with the idea of motorcycling was being young, and every time there was a motorcycle in the vicinity, I wanted to see it. Every time there was a toy with a motorcycle, I would want it. Every time there was mention of motorcycles, I might immediately in my head thought, that's absolutely something I want to be a part of. And I was very lucky in my youth that my parents were not dead set against motorcycles. I know a lot of my friends' parents were. But even moving up through my teens into my early 20s, I still had just a vibrant connection to motorcycling. I grew up in the Denver metropolitan area of Colorado. I did, leave and go back to Colorado several different times. And there was always the ability, due to the climate there in the high desert eastern plains, right next to the Rocky Mountains, just east of the Rocky Mountains, where there would be warm weather in winter. There would be a good 65, 70 degree, 75 degree day. And it was possible, even when I was young, to get motorcycles out of hibernation and take them for a quick ride, even in the winter. And that was something I really appreciated doing. The last year I lived in Colorado was 2018, and I left in November 2018. The prior year, 2017, I had ridden motorcycles every single month of the year, so I was able to ride year-round, mostly due to temperatures warming and not being as cold, sustained cold in the winter. And so those variations that when I was a kid that were a day, a couple days, a few days a month suddenly became, 2 weeks, 1 week in that month that was motorcycle weather. And over the years, I did a ton of motorcycling. I did take a short break from motorcycling after a serious motorcycle wreck. But when I went back to motorcycling, I went back to motorcycling with a vengeance, and I fell in love with motorcycling all over again. And if I wasn't working and I wasn't hanging out with friends, I was basically on my motorcycle or sleeping. And so it was another fabulous time, and I just put gobs and gobs of miles down. And somewhere along the lines, my utter appreciation of every single second on motorcycling, wane is the wrong word maybe, but was less vivid than it used to be. My love for motorcycling was still intact, but it wasn't as vibrant, it wasn't as front and center, it wasn't as consistent during the ride that it had been. I would notice I would be doing a lot of mototherapy, meaning that I was present, I was in the moment, I was, enjoying the ride thoroughly, but there was always back-end processes, going through the events in my life, figuring out, best way to handle things and It didn't stop me from writing. It didn't stop me from being attentive. But there was this second process, or third or fourth or fifth process, depending on what was going on in my life, that was in the back of my mind. And there was a point where I just went, motorcycling is fantastic, but if I missed it for a week, I didn't miss it. I was just kind of like, that's okay. And I felt fine with that. I honestly did. And, the intensity, like I said, had shifted a bit. The vividness of it, the vibrancy of it had shifted a bit. And it kind of went into the background just a little, just enough so that passion for it subsided a bit, and I see it all the time with people in YouTube channels where they, are talking, they're saying the right things, they're doing the channel the right way to retain viewers and this and that. And I guess because I've never been a guy to chase trends and to think that I could somehow become a influencer on social media and make my living that way, excuse me. I wasn't all about the set up the cameras and drive by and then go back and take them down and then set them up somewhere else and, drive by and then set them to the other angle and then drive by again. I was never that guy, mostly because that's a lot of work to do and takes away from the experience of writing, in my humble opinion. And more than that, what I've noticed is that a lot of writers stopped talking about how it felt to ride the motorcycle and talked about the mechanics of riding a motorcycle. Started talking about just spec sheets. Started talking about, the cliches, the big cliche is, you experience freedom on a motorcycle like you don't other places. But the context of that was lost. The context of you feel freedom because you're in the elements. You're not protected by a cage. You're 100% in the experience. You can feel the temperature changes. You can feel the wind direction changes. You can feel, the blast of the wind, depending on how fared your motorcycle is. You feel the sensation of speed through every part of your body. You get every single smell as you go by, whether that's the pleasant smells of the forest or a lake or crops or a field of flowers or a skunk that had been in the area, but you're in the moment 100% of the time. And that type of freedom, you just don't get in a car. You just don't get even in a convertible, because the convertible still has that windscreen in front. It's got comfort in the form of AC or heat that can be applied to you. You're more free in a convertible than you are absolutely in a fully enclosed car. It's still not the same as a motorcycle. It still doesn't have that sensation of flying, just, flying on the ground, I guess is the best way to put it, but it feels like you're flying just above the ground. But literally your tires are rolling on the ground the whole time. So you're flying on the ground. You lean around corners, you bank into corners like an airplane does. You don't have the inertia pushing you to the outside of the corner. You lean into the corner to zero that out. You've got every sensation of the road being transmitted to the motorcycle unless you've got really spongy suspension. You've got just a bunch of things telling you what you're experiencing all at the same time. And then there are motorcycles out there that do an incredible job of reawakening what it means to be in love with motorcycling again. For me, that motorcycle was the Kawasaki W800. And it was, I'll be perfectly honest, it started with 100% how the motorcycle looked. I had never ridden one. I read the spec sheet, and being a very wise and experienced rider, I understood that spec sheets tell part of the story. They don't tell the whole story. They tell you about how it was how it left the factory and what it meant to achieve a certain level of Euro 5, I think it's Euro 5 is the current emissions compliance, how it, what type of motorcycle it is, whether it's a, low-end grunt, whether it's a high-end horsepower, whether it's a adventure bike, whether it's a cruising bike, whether it's a sport bike, whether it's a, hyper naked, or whether it's a standard or a modern classic or a modern retro. But what it doesn't tell you is what it's like to experience the motorcycle. It just disconnects. And so I saw the specs. I saw what it looked like, that amazingly beautiful bevel drive. I immediately was obsessed at the motor on the Kawasaki W800. And so the first time I rode it, and it's no secret that I'm not a fan of the stock tires that come with the W800. Even with the stock tires that came with it, it was like a light switch went on that dragged me to the point, not where I fell in love with motorcycling again for the first time, but it dragged me all the way back to the very first time I fell in love with motorcycling. The very first time I went from riding a bicycle to riding a motorcycle, and just that sensation and exhilaration of it being the coolest dang thing in the world to be piloting a motorcycle. And even though I work remote, I don't commute to the office every day, and if I did, I would be definitely riding a motorcycle. But I find that unless I'm getting things, that would be better served on with a car, I'd much rather take the motorcycle. Unless it's raining, I'd much rather take the motorcycle. Unless it's too cold, I'd much rather take the motorcycle. And all those things changed as I became more experienced. But that love of motorcycling, that obsession with it, that I cannot wait to get back on my motorcycle, is reignited and burning bright. And it's not just the W that I ride. I do have other motorcycles in my stable. But the W is what really reconnected me and dragged me back to it and said, this is why you fell in love with motorcycling, for the sensation of flying, for the moving through space and time, for the effortless, what felt effortless compared to a bicycle, rolling up a hill without any, exhaustion, pumping away at the pedals. The ability to go in to turn slow in, fast out, right? That you and I, for a long time I didn't know it was called trail braking, where you bring on you load the front tire by applying brake pressure to the front. Not a severe amount. You don't want to shave off too much speed, but you want to shave off enough that if you've got a decreasing radius turn, that's absolutely zero problem. And through the entire turn, you've got the ability to either stay on the brake as it decreases and you're fine getting through, or to very, very gently start easing off the brake. And then when you see that exit, trail it off, the front brake till it's no longer engaged, and re-engage the throttle, and stand up the machine and come out of that corner, quickly, and get that exhilaration of speed and acceleration and the increased wind pressure, and it's just magic to me. I don't even know how to describe it beyond the words I'm finding. It's a magic sensation to me. It is absolutely being 100% alive to me. Some people experience that skydiving. Some people experience that bungee jumping. Some people experience that by riding a rocket ship into space. For me, I experienced that with motorcycling. And if you are not currently a motorcyclist, or if you're a motorcyclist that maybe has that muted vibrancy, that muted love for riding, that it's become more mechanical, it's become more technical, it's become more rational for you, I highly recommend revisiting the Modern Classic, Modern Retro range. I highly encourage you to ride a Kawasaki W800 if you can find one, a Kawasaki W650 if you can find one. The W650 appeals more to people who want a spot-on recreation of a classic bike, because it has a kickstart, it's got carburetors, it's got a disc on front and drum in back. It doesn't have ABS. It doesn't have fuel injection. It may have a slipper clutch, but I don't know. And it doesn't have the LED lighting. So, if you want something more along the lines of a true classic recreation, I would say find yourself a W650 and take it out for a ride. But I'm not advocating the bikes because they're the highest performing. I'm not advocating the bikes because they are, the best 0 to 60 time. I'm not advocating the bike because they're the ones that you want to get knees and shoulders and elbows down. I'm advocating the bikes because what they're absolutely fantastic at is getting you to fall in love with motorcycling again. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have, please do consider a like and a subscribe. Keep the shiny side up, the rubber side down, and keep it wheel.